Hi, everyone. Welcome. I love to see cameras on. Francisco, yay. It makes the event so much better. So we'll just wait a few minutes while we're getting people entering in. Arushi, hello. Thanks for coming back. I love when we get to see regular people coming back. You know, we start to have like our entourage or our posse, our group of people that come in. It's nice.
Oh, I did not know I was on mute. Hi, very good evening, Michelle. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too. Okay. We'll give it a couple more minutes. So since this is a LinkedIn event, feel free to put your LinkedIn URL in the chat because we can make a few extra connections today.
Yeah, I'm going to put mine in right away. So I'll start
Laura,
first.
could
Yeah.
you add in mine too?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to give it another minute and we're going to get started. Thanks for adding yours, Arushi.
And then I'm just inserting Michelle's here as well.
I'm sorry if you hear background noise of children and doggy. Okay. I think we're ready to get started. What do you think, Laura?
Yep, no, it sounds good.
Ready
Thanks
to
for coming,
go?
everyone.
Thank you. So today we're looking at LinkedIn networking and we're focusing on best practice. So you might have already been to our LinkedIn events before where we're talking about profiles, but now we're actually looking at kind of the do's and don'ts as far as networking goes.
So I can introduce myself first. So I'm Laura Reed. I'm a career development professional. I have an educational background as well in student affairs and services from George Brown. I used to be a career development professional or employment counselor specifically for people with disabilities. And I've been working at Devant for almost a year now. Oh, I'm not sure if Michelle's frozen or if I am.
Okay, my internet's going a little bit funny, so I have to shut my camera off for a second. Laura, you were very slow motion on my end, so I think it's my internet. So I'm Michelle Sloka. I am a career coach with Devant. I also have my own business doing career consulting as well, and I focus on LinkedIn. It is my favorite. I can talk about LinkedIn all day, and I'm so excited to answer your questions. Even much so that there's a professional organization called Career Professionals of Canada. And last year at Brag Moment, I won the award for Outstanding Social Media Strategist because I focus a lot of my attention on LinkedIn. So I'm excited to share my knowledge with you.
Great. So we'll just get started with a little bit about Devant. So we help international students and alumni stay, work, and succeed in Canada. So Devant in French means to get in front of, and that's our aim for you. So we help you to get ahead of the competition and in front of employers so you can build your dream career in Canada. Jump into your job search resources today using our Devant platform at devant.ca.
I don't know if anyone's been on the master classes, but I tell you, there's so much information. And what's nice too is that we go into so much detail, but you can take that whenever you're able to fit time in and get some detailed information. And I find it helpful to be doing some of these master classes, you know, before you come to workshops, because then when questions come up, you likely will think of them as you're going through more of our content on Devant. This is kind of like our sneak peek and our added extra to the master classes as well. So definitely check that out.
Perfect. So before we get started, we just wanted to encourage anyone to turn your cameras or microphones on if you would like. If you're not comfortable, that's okay. You can just talk to us in the chat as well. We're recording this session so it can be shared with with registrants through their emails. So you'll have access to that after. You can, as I said, use the chat function for answers or questions and submit comments at any time. So we'll be checking it and getting back to you. And then register for future free workshops by visiting devant.ca/all events. We'll have one about every week. So always a new content or topic.
And we do have a Q&A at the end of the session, but please, if we're not clear on something or you have a follow-up question and we're talking about it, please raise your hand or comment in the chat so we can get to that right at that point. Go ahead, Arushki.
I have a quick question. What are these
Sure.
master classes at Devant about?
It's literally everything career related, everything that you can think of. It literally even goes through like the master classes. We talk about resumes in detail. We talk about elevator pitch. Literally everything in career development is on there. You may just have to check with your school to see what package that you have if you have access. I know we have a mixture here between people who are accessing Devant through your school and some that are not. And as well, schools have different packages. So just check with your school to see what is included, because I'm likely you'll have the master classes included, but it literally is on everything that you would need in your job search, every aspect.
All right. All
Resumes, yeah, stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, everything. Good question.
Okay, perfect. So what we're going to start with today is LinkedIn etiquette. So we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts. The next part we're going to talk about is, well, Michelle's going to talk about is her top 3 networking strategies. And then I'm going to go through mine as well. And then the last part will be the question and answer session. So as Michelle said, if you have a question in between, that's fine. If you have something right at the end, that's fine too.
So if you're just joining in as well, using the chat, people putting their link to the URL for LinkedIn. So feel free to do that as
Michelle, we can't hear you. Your voice is cutting down.
No.
There we
Can you
go.
get that,
You're
Laura, then?
back.
Could you repeat the slide? Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to hear from you. Why do you think it's important to understand LinkedIn etiquette?
I think, can I go ahead and answer it?
Yes,
Please.
please.
So I think if you talk about today's times, LinkedIn is the largest professional platform where recruiters, employers, students, everyone's there for professional, connections. So it's really important to go about that platform in a full of full of etiquettes rather than doing some unprofessional um, sort of making unprofessional remarks or going about it in an unprofessional way. It is very important that we go about on LinkedIn in a very professional manner, which would include having good etiquettes.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? So Michelle and I are also going to go through all of these as well. But if anyone has any more ideas, you can unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat.
Hello, everyone. So
Hello.
so for me, the question is, why do you think it's important to understand LinkedIn etiquette, right?
Yep.
Basically, what we are seeing these days, most employers, they go on LinkedIn on the site to actually check on prospective employees, because it's also a pool where they recruit new employees as well. So it's good to ensure that your LinkedIn profile is well organized.
Mhm.
And
Perfect.
what we see now and for the future is that most employers would be recruiting most of their employees from LinkedIn. I think that's the direction I think we are going to.
So unfortunately, I only heard parts of both of yours because my internet is slowing down, but the pieces that I did hear, you're definitely right on track. And the thing is, we don't want to be, as we're starting to network on LinkedIn, we're starting to put a reputation out there already. And it's important to know that really, even in the realm of recruiting, it really is a small world. And so we don't ever want to be approaching kind of these LinkedIn faux pas or things we shouldn't be doing when our reputation could be affected by it. And just to kind of paint a little bit of a picture, I know that I've had people that I've recommended, some various people to say, hey, you should connect with this person because they might be helpful in your job search. And so that person might message the person, and maybe the person says, you know what, I actually can't help with that. I'm sorry, but whatever, and kind of end it. Well, then sometimes that person might go back and keep messaging that recruiter over and over again and kind of bugging them. And then I end up getting a message back from that recruiter and saying, like, this person wouldn't stop, they're bugging me, I had to block them, and kind of going on. So we want to make sure that we are presenting ourselves in a manner that we're not going to already like tamper with our reputation right away. The other thing as well is that with LinkedIn, though it is a social platform, there's still that fine line that we're not approaching LinkedIn the same way that we would approach Instagram or Facebook. We don't we want to be professional the entire time as well, and that we want to make sure that we aren't crossing any boundaries or kind of making too light of things. Is there anything that you want to add with that as well, Laura?
No, that makes sense to me. Everything there was good.
Okay. So now that we understand the why, we want to point out the do's and don'ts of either side. So over to you, Laura.
Perfect. So the first don't that we wanted to make clear was don't send generic or long messages. So when you first reach out to someone, you probably will want to put send a note. So you're going to have the option to send a note or not. We suggest sending one, but make sure it's very short and concise. So you don't want to tell anyone your life story. It's just hello, simple greeting, how you want to connect or why you want to connect, and then just you end the message right away. So it's only about 2 or 3 sentences.
And in your first message, you don't want to ask for a favor right away. And so when we kind of flip it and think about it realistically, if we walked up to someone and we just met them, we wouldn't be asking them for a favor right away, right? So we want to have a conversation first and then ask a favor later on, but don't do that in your first message. If we're going to be looking at the chances of receiving a reply back, your chances would be low that you're going to get a response back, or at least a favorable response if you're asking for a favor right away.
Yeah, so it is tempting, but yeah, you're just starting to build a rapport with the person, so not quite yet. One of the next things is we don't suggest spamming, so any like irrelevant content. So basically anything that's not related to like your profession or business is something that we would say isn't relevant content. Constant messages we already talked about as well, so that's just not asking the person over and over again for things. And as I said before too, that can be very tempting, right? Because you're eager and but you just have to tone it back a bit.
And so this one here, don't send a request more than once. So this is when you are sending a connection request to someone. Just basically set it and forget it. Send the request and leave it. So sometimes you might go back and see that it's still pending. And so that could mean that one, they haven't logged in, or two, they could have declined connecting with you and it just still stays as pending. I know that there's some people take the approach that they retract the request just to send it again so it's bumped up, but it actually annoys people. So I think a good way to approach it is just send it once and then leave it. And that's it. So just one time.
Perfect. So one of our last don'ts is don't start messaging until your profile is complete with a picture. So your profile is like 10 times more likely to be seen with a profile picture, so definitely put one in. It's nice for the person to get some context as to who you are. So having a profile picture will help as well. Another thing I'd like to add too is with your headline or like your title underneath your name, make sure you have one. I've had people send me messages and it's just like their name, but nothing underneath. So I don't know like what their profession is. I don't know why they're reaching out to me. So definitely put like, like career development professional, if that's what you are, human resources, or some sort of title like that you're a student at, like for instance, Mohawk College, and that you're studying something of interest.
Mhm. And I think as far as, so if you're thinking right now, what's my approach when I go onto LinkedIn? It's definitely important to get your profile done first, then start networking. Because what will happen, you'll send a message and everyone's natural instinct before replying is to look at your profile. So if you have nothing to, like, if it's not complete, there's not much information there, then they're not going to be replying back. And if they do, it's going to be very generic because they don't know where you're coming from or kind of what's happening. So it won't be favorable. And especially when it comes to a picture, a lot of career related things, I like to kind of flip back to what it would be like if you were dating. So if you were on Tinder, let's say, and someone sends you a message, wouldn't work necessarily on Tinder, but if they send you a message and they have no picture and nothing in their profile, do you want to be responding? You wouldn't even think twice. You wouldn't even message them back. So you definitely want to have a picture. You want to have some context because that's already going to start kind of the foundation of your possible connection.
Perfect. Yep. A nice clear picture with your face is the best way to go. So sometimes it's tempting to put a whole body photo, but just something simple and professional is all anyone needs. It'll be good enough for sure. So a do that we've wrote here is create a personalized and concise message. So I'm going to talk about this more in my 3 top tips because it's definitely one of mine. So it says here too that you want to do your homework. So basically, you want to take a look at the person's profile before messaging them. And if you see a connection there, like if you both go to the same school or whatnot, you would definitely want to include that in the message. And it just also gives them a chance to know that you actually like care, that you actually are invested in wanting them to be a connection as well.
Yeah, I think the do your homework is a really important part. So keep these two things in mind. So if you're going to send a personalized message, go over to their profile, look for one, anything that you have in common, or two, something that you find interesting, and then you can weave that like naturally in your conversation. So now that we listed all these don'ts, you might be thinking, well, what can I say in that first message? Don't overthink it too much. The personalized touch is going to be nice, and really kind of get in the mindset that your first message, your goal of it should just be getting a reply back. I feel like a lot of times people look at it as I have to be drafting the perfect message because this message may land me a job. Well, it's very low chances that one single message is going to get you a job, but your goal should just be to get a reply back, and then kind of conversations will go from there.
Perfect. So one of our last or especially do's is connect with people currently working in your dream role. So for example, my friend works in, she's a plant pathologist for a cannabis company. So if she's reaching out to someone in just general biology, it might not be the most easy thing or the most like effective connection. But if she's reaching out to someone in plant biology too, she could say like, "Oh, I really am interested in this section. I noticed you are too." If their job material or any sort of study material that they've done has anything listed about that as well. So just making sure that it's very relevant.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see job seekers do on LinkedIn is that they may be under the impression that it's a numbers game. The more people I connect with, the better. And I think that's where that the whole don't list that we have here comes into play, because you may be setting yourself, an hour a week that you're going to be spending on LinkedIn, but you might spend that in a way where you're like, I need to connect with 100 people, and focusing there on just connecting with a lot of people. And in that sense, if you're looking that you want to just have a big network and the more people you know, the higher chances that you're going to land a position, But that will definitely bring you into a spot where you're going to be sending out generic messages. You're not going to do your homework because your idea is just getting a huge connection and a huge following and a big network. But when you focus in on more of the quality of people that you're connecting with, it's going to be better for your networking. And so when I added this part in of, connecting with people who are in your dream roles and companies, is that's going to help you focus who you're connecting with. Because you might hear from people who say, just connect with everybody and anyone. That is a not good use of your time, because we only have so much time in our day. I don't think we're all just waiting around with nothing to do and starting to connect with people. We want to be kind of focusing our efforts on who can we connect with. We only have a limited time. Who's the best people to connect with? And starting off with people who are in dream roles and dream companies, that's going to help you focus. And it's going to be a lot easier to be coming up with those personalized messages, because you already have things that you're drawn to about them, whether it's the position they're in or the company that they're working, or maybe both.
Perfect.
Okay, so I was coming up with my list of my top 3 networking strategies, and it was very hard to come up with because I think I have a million. But these are the ones that I'm really, really liking right now. I'll pick my favorites. So right now, these ones win. The first one is connecting with alumni. I'm going to show you this just afterwards. I go through all these ones, but in this approach, you can go to your school's page on LinkedIn. There's going to be a tab that says alumni, and then there's going to be a spot where you can filter the results to people who graduated from the same program as you. That's going to be a lot easier to connect with those people. You already have something in common. You took the same program at the same school, so there's already a connection point there. And then there could be a double bonus that you could even find someone who's in a company that you want to be working for, and that kind of hits all of the sections in your box. I added in there that there's a pro tip. If you want to send that person a message, you even have the option, if you're using the LinkedIn app, you can actually leave them a voice note. And I know that seems really nerve-wracking, but it will increase your chances of getting a response. Number one, it's really hard to ignore a voice message that comes through. It's easier to ignore a typed message. But then as well, sometimes it's a conversation in itself that you can send a voice message. I do it all the time. And sometimes the first response that people send to me is, I didn't even know that you could do that. That's so cool. And that's so much easier. So even in itself, just sending that, I know it's nerve-wracking, but I will let you know as well that you have the option when you send it, it will come up with a pop-up and say, do you want to send this? So if you flustered on your words or you're like, oh, I don't like that, you can cancel it and then try again. The second thing is the magic is in the comments. So I know for some of our shy people in the crowd that it might feel so weird to just be sending a message out to someone. It could just make you sick to even think of. That the magic in the comments, this is where it's at. So take time, go onto LinkedIn on the news feed. So that's where people are posting content, and make a goal for yourself that you're going to put a comment to 2 or 3 posts. And you're going to do a little bit more than congratulations on the job, or that's a good point. Put some thought and some value, like you're having a conversation with them in real life and they shared this information and how you'd respond. You'll notice that your visibility is going to go up. So, you see the numbers, how many people have looked at your profile or something like that. You'll see that those are going to go up because your name is going to be showing up more in the comments and people can see you. And you might even attract messages coming to you, which is nice to be on the receiving end of a message. And then the last one, let me just move. I have the chat in the way here. So you can increase your response rate by viewing their activity before messaging. So actually, I kind of put this in 2 different ways. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. But essentially what I was pointing out here was that if you look at their activity section, you can see how often they're using LinkedIn. There's a lot of people who basically create a LinkedIn profile, set it and forget it. Like they're not back on there. So if you go on and you see that they're active, then that's going to be a good person to focus your time on. If you see that they haven't logged in like a month or more, then your chances of actually getting a response is going to be slim because they're just not on the platform very much. And so move on to someone who actually is using the platform. So I'm going to switch over to LinkedIn to show you what those look like. So just give me a moment to switch over here. Let's see here.
Does anyone have any questions about anything so far? Kind of clear so far.
Okay.
We can't see the screen yet. It's just black.
Oh, it's just black? You don't see anything?
There, now we're good.
Okay, okay. Whew. Okay, it just keeps saying that my internet's unstable. I think you can see that message. I'm in the country, you know? So the first thing I'm going to show you is looking at the activity section. I'm going to give you 2 pointers on this activity section and just give you a little bit more insight on it. So I'm on Laura's profile here, and you can see this on everyone's profile. If I scroll down, there's a section here called activity. And just to give you a little bit more insider scoop on this activity section. So anything that you do on LinkedIn, with exception to messaging people, it kind of tracks it in this section. So even for myself, when I recruited for positions and I'm recruiting for someone who's going to be forward facing, like with clients, I like to see how they naturally respond to people and talk to people throughout LinkedIn. So this would be a spot I'd look at. But as far as building connections, this is what I was talking about. So if I click on show all activity, and I'll go to all activity. So any articles they've shared, created, or commented on, it all shows here. And so I can see that Laura liked this a week ago. And so I know that she's been on recently. And I'll look through to just kind of see, okay, before that was a week ago. Okay, so she's like pretty active on it. So I know that this will be a good person to connect with because they actually come on here. The second thing you can do as well is if you click on post, these are items that Laura has either reshared or posted herself. So I might go on here and just strategically go through and comment on something here. So now when she logs in, she's going to get a notification and it will say, Michelle commented on your post. So the name's going to come up and it's going to spark already. My name's going to be familiar to her. It's also going to make them feel good because if anyone has posted their own post on LinkedIn, it takes some time to do. And when someone comments, I think it feels nice that someone commented and spent time out of their day to message, and it makes me happy. So if someone were to message me after they commented, I'm probably more inclined to respond because they already kind of did me a favor by making my post more visible and kind of engaged in conversation. So that's it for activity. And now I'm going to go over to the alumni section. So I'm using Georgian College as an example. Do we have any Georgian College students in the house? That's where I'm alumni for. So I'm going to go to the alumni tab. And then, so right now it shows we have almost 70,000 on here, and that is far too many for me to go through. So I'm going to go through the program that I went. So I did human resources. Whoops. Okay, so it narrows it down to 4,000, which to me is a little bit too high. So maybe I want to narrow it down to closer to when I graduated. So let's do like 2012 to 2017, let's say, because I want someone who's already established a little bit more in their career. So now it brings me down to just over 1,000. And you can narrow it down even more if you want to. So if you want to search by where they live, where they worked, you can kind of look through there. And just as kind of like an added piece of information, if you're trying to even figure out who your target employers are, this is a good spot to look. Take a look through at people's profiles and see where they've worked since they've graduated, because you know that they have had the same education that you've had, and these employers hired them. So that's kind of a good starting point to figure out, which direction should I be going in. So before I switch over, does anyone have any questions about those two things? Clear as mud. Okay. Let me switch over. I have done so many of these events, but I tell you, my transition from one screen to another is like never smooth.
Oh, it's coming back.
We all have our skills, but this
There we
is
go.
not mine. Okay. Over to you, Laura. What are your tips?
Perfect. So I have 3 as well. They're not as jazzy as Michelle's are, but I think they'll get it done. So the first one I have is send a note. So when you're connecting with someone on LinkedIn, they're going to say you have the option to send a note or not to send a note. So I would suggest sending a note. Make sure it's brief. So let's say I'm connecting with Michelle. I would say, hi, Michelle. So not hi, ma'am or sir or whatever like that. Make sure you're addressing them by their name. And then I would say something like, I hope you're having a good week. And then when I actually did send this message to Michelle, I said, I believe we're both in the same like employment counseling class in the career development program at Conestoga College. I'd like to connect. Thanks. And then my name. And I actually am putting that in the chat as well. So you can see that's my little message to Michelle that I would put. So you can see it's really brief. Right to the point. She knows exactly where I'm from. And I always say I believe because like you could be sending it to the wrong Michelle. You never know, right? So that's why I always just want to cover my grounds just in case. So that's my first one. So that's in the chat as well. So you can copy and paste it or use that as a template. The second one is in.
Can I add to
Oh,
that for
sorry.
a second?
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I think it's always a good idea to be sending a note because honestly, even though I'm on LinkedIn all the time, I'm also guilty of sending out connection requests and not sending anything. And I tell you, like, I don't know if it's for everybody, but for me, if I don't send that message ahead of time and then, I realize that we've connected and it's months since we've been connected and talked to them, I feel like there's a bigger hesitation on my side. It's like I invited them and then I didn't talk to them, and you almost like lose that connection in a way. Like if it's so much more natural to reach out right away to be like, thanks for accepting my request, blah, blah, blah. Now it's almost like I have to backtrack and like, thanks for accepting my request a month ago, and then going from there, right? Or even just keeping track of who I connected. So it's just a good habit to get into. You send a message request and then add a note and just do it right away.
Perfect. Yep. So that's our first well, that's my first tip, and Michelle likes it a lot too. So can't stress that enough. Our second tip is endorse connections. So if you're connected with someone, you can actually endorse their skills at the bottom of the LinkedIn profile. So you just scroll down to the bottom. The skills section is there. You'll have an option of putting 50 skills. We recommend putting about 50 skills. So yeah, make sure you fill out that skills section as much as you can. And let's say it's a classmate or whatever, you can like endorse them for communication skills. So if you've done like a presentation together or something that you could say like public speaking you endorse them for, but it has to be something you know they can do that you can verify that they did. So I couldn't put Michelle down for like accounting because I have no idea if she can do accounting or not. We've only ever done things like this so far. So I would
I
say like
can't,
public
just
speaking
for the
and career
record.
development. Yeah.
Does everyone know what endorsements is? I know it's kind of a weird area that like most people kind of ignore. I just want to give a little bit of context to it. So at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile, there's that skill section. And I just want to talk about the value of it. So you'll see that when someone endorses you, they just basically say like, yes, in fact, Laura has the skill in facilitating, for example. As that number, you'll see a number beside it as people endorse you. And as people endorse you, that number will get higher and higher. If a recruiter were to go in and search for that specific skill, that actually moves you up on the list. The higher that number is and people endorse you, the higher you're going to show up on that list. So that necessarily doesn't help you with networking, but it helps you with visibility. But as far as the networking piece comes in, it's almost like you're paying someone a compliment and you're actually helping them on LinkedIn, right? And so maybe it's like a connection, like you haven't spoken to someone in a while and you're not really sure how to reach out and start the conversation because maybe it's been a couple years since you chatted, maybe before COVID. That's a good icebreaker. Go on and see what you can endorse them for. And maybe they'll just start the conversation by saying, thanks for endorsing me. And then you can go from there.
And they might also think of you too, like if they're like at a job and they're hiring, for example, and you're on their mind, right? So they could possibly be thinking of you as well. So it's just a good way to get your name out there. The third one is the class list, and that is my absolute favorite one. So basically, when you go onto Blackboard or your student portal, you'll be able to find a list of the classmates that you have, either in the communications section or whatnot. I always go there like right at the beginning of the school year and I look through all the names and I basically type in the names in LinkedIn. And if they have a profile or whatnot, I just send them the same message I basically sent Michelle in the chat there. So it's just a good way to get connected right away. And you're just growing, expanding out, and you only have that class list for a limited time. So you just want to make sure that you get that done within the semester as well. But it's a great way just to start building your network.
And so I know if you were here for last week's session for Career Cafe, I talked about it then, but I'm going to say it again for people that weren't there. Connecting with your classmates is always a good idea. They might not be helpful for you for finding your first job because you're all in the same boat of trying to find something. But when you're looking for your second, your third, your fourth position after, they will be very helpful for you, that's for sure. And so even using Devont as an example, I was like the starter, one of the originals of being with Devont. And so if you're with me last week, I had Kate with me. Kate and I took HR together at Georgian College, and now I have Laura here with me. I converted her to be a Devont person as well, and Laura and I were at Conestoga together doing career development. So you end up getting more connections that way. And like Laura, you didn't even have to apply to the position. I told you about it, got you in. Like that's how we can kind of make that work, right? And especially like right now with everyone likely still having almost like a hybrid model for school, it's hard to remember all the people that you've gone to school with and everything if you're not seeing them all the time. So I love that idea of having that class list. And if anyone's like me, sometimes when I'm in virtual lessons, I kind of need to multitask, maybe do a little task while I'm listening to the person present. So what a good time to just look at that list and just connect with people while you're sitting there and listening and building up that list going forward. So we have shared a lot of strategies with you today, and I'm interested to hear what strategies that you want to implement first, or ones that you think are interesting, or maybe you have one that we didn't share today and you want to share with the group.
Any ideas?
And also, if you didn't add your LinkedIn URL, there's another time, another reminder for that.
So personally, my favorite is always the class list. It's just so easy. Your connection is immediate. You're obviously both going to the same school and the same program. So that's always been my go-to. But how about you?
Go ahead, Rishi.
I have a question rather that like the voice note tip, Michelle, you gave us, it should be used only to connect with alumni, or we can send a voice note to hiring managers as well. while looking
To
for a job?
anybody. I think the voice feature is so good. Use that on anyone. Like, I don't think you can send it in your first initial message when you're sending a connection, but I would use that for anyone. I just want to tie in that without, like I said, I had a million tips and I tried to actually like mix a few tips together. So it wasn't just strictly to alumni. That is for anybody. And especially if you're someone who feels uncomfortable with maybe you don't feel confident in your English, it's a good way to practice because you can try it a few times and just kind of like practice your English in even 30-second chunks of like, I'm just putting out this information and practicing, but you start to build that connection a lot faster. I feel like for myself, like Instagram, even making connections on there, even professionally, that I felt like I had deeper connections with people faster because we could hear each other's voice and it adds a little bit different element to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it 100% does.
Yeah, you got to
Okay,
try that. Practice on me.
yes. I will. And also want to understand the in-mail feature, which has been out recently. The in-mail feature, like when we send a message to someone, it shows in-mail.
So in-mail has to do with when you're not connected. It's not a new feature, but it really is just showing that if you're not connected to that person yet, you would send them an in-mail message. And so when someone receives that, it just shows us this person sending you a message, but you're not yet connected. But when you look at it on your list of messages, it stands out because it's bolded actually. So the other ones, the messages kind of look like unbolded and then the other one is bolded, so it would just kind of highlight in your list of messages. I don't know if it's necessarily like any kind of strategy. That's just kind of what in-mail is. But as soon as you connect with them, your message kind of goes regular and it doesn't say in-mail. You might also come across in-mail messages from recruiters. So when I was recruiting for positions and sourcing through LinkedIn, when people would receive a note from me, it would come through like an in-mail message because again, we're not connected, but I'm reaching out to them. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Oscar, you had your hand raised. Was your question already answered?
I was going to comment on that strategy of sending like voice messages,
Mm-hmm.
but I was actually thinking about something else. Like, I don't actually prefer like in-person networking.
Mm-hmm.
So would you suggest like starting from LinkedIn, going to a point where we can meet each other with our network, or is that something not really usual?
Like you want to see if you can connect with someone on LinkedIn and hopefully you can meet them in real life.
Yeah, like take a
Yeah,
coffee or
I think you
yeah.
can definitely ask. Like it wouldn't be weird if you asked, as long as it's not sounding like you're asking for a date, but you're asking for to meet kind of thing and talk about like professionally of just kind of being mindful of how you're asking. But of course, you know, everyone's going to be different. I feel like the pandemic, like I'm sure you already know that everyone's kind of weird with like whether they want to interact with people or not. But as far as etiquette goes, it is definitely a question that you can ask that isn't like out of left field, like just really random. But the other part with that as well is that when you're at networking events, you should also be connecting with people on LinkedIn when you're there as well. I'm just looking at my phone for a second because I was saying to Laura, when you're teaching things about LinkedIn, you have to be on it so much, as in like they change things like literally daily. So I want to make sure that the information I'm giving you now isn't old, as in they could have changed it yesterday. Let's see if this works. Okay. I'm going to put my camera on again and hopefully my internet can handle this. Uh,
Oscar, I'll also just say too, like that's a great question, and I agree too. It's so much like easier to be more formal. So you can also put it as an informational interview as well. That's how you can sort of structure it as well if you're like, I don't know how to approach this person.
Okay,
um,
definitely.
I don't know how we can see this. It's so blurry. Okay, see how there's the search bar? This only works on your phone. So at the top, that's the search bar. Let's see if I can turn down the. Okay, so I'm going to click on the search bar, and what comes up, do you see that there's a little box right here? So if I click that box, so when you click on the search bar, the box will appear. And what comes up is your QR code, like this. So if you were to go to an in-person event and you want to connect with someone, and especially if you're trying to spell your name to them, or maybe your name's really common, so like they're having a hard time finding you, just make it easy for them. Bring up your QR code and they can just scan it. And you can also save this on your phone or anything. So I've seen people who save it as their background image on their phone. Or if you want to be fancy and have business cards, some people still have it. You can add that to your business card. So when you're out and about and connecting, you can just show that QR code and people can connect with you super fast and you look fancy.
That's super fancy for me, but I'll have it in mind. Thanks.
Okay. That's a good question. I miss these in-person events. I wish there was more. I highly recommend, if you ever see any speed networking events in your area, to join those. Has anyone ever done speed networking before? Do you know what it's about?
Tell us about it, please.
Okay, so what it is essentially is that you would go to this event and you'd have people lined up on one side sitting. And so you'd sit with one person and you'd talk to them for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. And then someone who's running the event, they'd like ring a bell, and the people on one side sit in one spot, but then the people on the other side of them move down one row or one chair, and then you meet with the next person, and you're just meeting with people over and over for like 3 to 5 minute conversations. And you end up meeting so many people and having a little bit more of a deeper conversation compared to just, standing around and like waiting until you ease into the comfortability of having conversation. But especially for those who are in the Toronto area, you're lucky to be in an area like that where there likely is going to be more events. But I'm even over here in Midland, which is like very, very country. I mean, we just got really excited that we now have Wendy's. Like, we are very small over here, but we even had a speed networking event a couple weeks ago. So take a look through. Google's a good spot to be looking, or Eventbrite, to see if there's any kind of networking events in your area. But it's speed networking that you go for. So as far as LinkedIn and have questions, it doesn't have to be on networking. It could be anything about LinkedIn. Does anyone have any success stories of connections on LinkedIn? Like maybe networking stories that led to a job or led to some great connections, or maybe a friendship or anything?
Mine's Michelle.
My success story is receiving messages from hiring managers, but almost when the job role is closed. So it's always, it's always a bit late, but I'm still glad that I'm receiving messages from them, that my messages, my personalized messages to them are effective enough to receive a message from them. So yes.
Perfect.
I only heard part of that. I just put in the comments my internet was messed up. But Laura, do you have any feedback on that?
Oh yeah, I think it's a really good point that Arushi was making. So she just mentioned that she, even though she doesn't really get positions necessarily, or she's always reaching out to managers and they're already full, she's still getting replies back. So I think that's really amazing actually too, because then you'll be top of mind. So I think that's an effective way to go about it for sure. And I think that's a great positive spin on it as well. So I appreciate that as well. Michelle, are you there?
I'm here now, but just barely.
Okay.
I like just got connected, so I missed that entire conversation. So I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think everyone else got it though. So we have a comment in the
Anyone else have
chat.
any other questions? Hopefully I can hear them.
There's one in the chat, so that's good. You can definitely see that one. So in the chat, Francisco said, if we apply to a job and the recruiter is on LinkedIn, should we approach that person to improve our chances at getting the job? Yeah, you can. Just make sure you're very brief and to the point. But yeah, I think that would be okay. Michelle, what do you think? Okay, she's not there. So yes, yep,
So
I would say so.
I'm back here again and I missed all of that. I just got it right at the end where you asked me if I had any information.
That's okay. So
Sorry.
so someone was just asking if it's okay to reach out to a recruiter if they have a LinkedIn profile and they're
Mhm.
hiring.
Yeah, it definitely. I think you should still reach out. So we talked about this last week as well. And so if they're hiring, that's even more of a reason to message them. But I just want to put this context out there to get a little bit more of a background of that. So if you are going to be connecting with someone at your dream employer, think about who you want to connect with. If you are going to connect with someone in HR, like a recruiter, or if you're going to be connecting with someone in the department, you can connect with both or maybe one or the other. As far as if you're looking of the chances of someone responding, your chances are definitely going to be higher if you're contacting someone who's in the department that you are aiming for, because they're going to have like 80% less messages compared to a recruiter because they are full of messages. Arushi is also a recruiter, so she was even talking about her experience of how many messages she gets in one day. But the thing is, if they're actively hiring for a position, they may be more inclined to respond. So if they're like promoting it a lot on LinkedIn or something, they're trying to generate conversation through that as well. So you can definitely give it a try. But like I said, when it comes to recruiters, they could get like Arushi. Did you say that you get like 50 messages in a day now?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
So it's a lot of
this
messages
is
that
another,
come through. And when you think like that's a very small part of their job, and that's not even necessarily a part of their job in a way, that they might not respond to it. So feel free to just know that it's very rare to get a response back. And if you do, you should feel very excited because knowing that they likely have 50 people and they decided to respond to you.
Exactly. Does anyone else
I
have
think
any
I'm
other
frozen
questions?
again.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Laura, Michelle, if we have enough time, can you guys quickly scan my LinkedIn profile if I'm like missing on anything, and that you guys would like to recommend me something to add, or something that I'm not doing correctly with my LinkedIn profile, if that's like okay with you.
Okay, let's do that. Just give me a moment. Are you still hearing me okay?
Yes.
This is the worst my internet's ever been, and it feels so weird. I feel like I'm on a different call than everybody. Like, okay.
This will be relevant to everyone else too, just because you know, basically all the techniques are very similar too. So it's a good learning experience.
I'm just looking through to get your profile up here for a second. And so if anyone comes to the other LinkedIn events or even to or even to a career cafe, if you have questions, you can feel free to ask these kind as well. I'm just having a hard time with my computer here. Moment. We need some like elevator music while I'm moving this along here. Okay. Okay. Share screen. Okay. Can we see LinkedIn?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. So, Arushi, is this you speaking here?
Yes.
I love that already. So I want to first start out, and yes, I'm trying to make this inclusive for everybody as well. So even looking at this, so the banner is often overlooked by people when they're creating a profile. And to me, this is prime real estate. It's the first thing that you looked at when you went to her profile. And a lot of people either have no banner or just something generic. So already I'm drawn to it because I know that she's likely a very good public speaker. She has leadership skills. So I'm just kind of drawing those conclusions as I'm looking at it. So another alternative as well, you can go on to Canva. So I don't know if you want to write that in the chat, Laura,
Sure.
but you can create a customized banner on there. And you don't necessarily have to have a picture of you. You could put in maybe your specialties. You could also put your value proposition. I know I'm throwing out some things that you might not have heard before, but a value proposition is essentially how do you add value to a company? So usually it looks like I help companies blank. So what do you do? I help companies increase their market share, whatever, like whatever you kind of do in just kind of layman terms of explaining what you do. I've seen some students even use that area to even like point out, looking for internship opportunities for summer 2023.
Oh,
It's your profile to do what you want to be doing with, right? And it's your billboard. Like you see when you're going on the highway that you see those billboards on the side, like that is yours to change up whenever you want. And it's right where people see as soon as they go onto your profile. So I like that you have that there. So I see that you also have open to work. So this is a feature that you can put on your profile, and you don't have to have the banner on there. It's kind of up to you, but basically what Arushi's done, she's signaling to recruiters that she's open for a position. So yes, visually you can see it like this, but when recruiters go on to their premium software using LinkedIn, it actually gives them a section where they can filter their results by people who have identified they're open for positions. And you're able to find that in your top section. So you'll see a spot that will say add in section, and it will say open to work, and you can just add that in there. But I do like to add this as a piece of information. So as far as looking for a job after graduation, have this banner here that says open to work. That's fine. If it was me and I'm looking for a job after my first graduate position, I wouldn't have that on there because this is how I kind of look at it. Some recruiters could look at that, or employers, and they might say, okay, now we know for sure that she's looking for something. If a hiring manager goes onto your profile and sees that, they may use that against you, as in, yes, the recruiter sees that, but they may have just forgot about it as you're getting to the negotiation phase. If the hiring manager goes on there and you have this banner on there, they could use that against you, because they'll say, you know what, let's go in at a low ball offer because we know that she is obviously really needing a job, right? So I don't like to put that on there. But I think if anyone is okay at putting that on there, it would be someone who's a student going into their first position, but I wouldn't put that any other time afterwards.
God.
Okay, so then you also kind of doubled up and put open to HR coordinator roles. I don't know if I would put that there, only because we have it here as well, and we're kind of doing like now double duty of adding it in again. In this section here, you have 220 characters that you can use. And so if we're thinking as LinkedIn as being like, it's almost like Google, a search engine, and people are using keywords to find people on here. So this section should actually be full of keywords. And so likely you have, so HR coordinator and HR admin would be
Michelle, we can't hear you. Yeah, so I'm not sure if Michelle's gonna come back. Well, she probably will, but what she means by keywords is like, oh, there we go.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. Do you want to
What was
repeat
the
that?
last thing you heard? This is so annoying. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was the last thing you heard?
The last two words you just said.
Shoot. Okay. Point is, this section should have keywords that are related to your industry so you can be showing up on more lists. So we can take out less of the flowy words in between and kind of be more direct. I like to put things like, so, right now you're recruiting, so recruiter at blank, and then you can put in like, you can literally just put HR coordinator, and then maybe specialties that you want to be focusing on. So if you're really good at labor relations, if you're really good at health and safety, whatever it is that you want to be focusing your career on, put that there. And it's almost like you're making your profile to be fitting what position you're going to be going into. And it's not like you're misleading them. It's like you're guiding, like this is where you want to be showing up on, and this is what you're aiming for.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you the top part because we're just running out of time, but hopefully
Yes.
that gives you some information to kind of go off of. I just want to share this with you before you go, and I know we're just out of time here. Let me switch back. When it comes to LinkedIn, keywords is a really, really big component to it. So take your time and think about what keywords need to be in your profile. And then kind of include that throughout your profile, like in your headline, in your summary, in your job descriptions. And those keywords are words that you're going to see in job postings that are specifically related to your field of work, because you just want to think when a recruiter is going on to LinkedIn and they're searching for different positions, they're typing in keywords. The more keywords that you're including, the more visibility and more lists that you're going to be showing on for recruiters. So let me just switch back to my screen here. I told you this is not my strong suit, is talking and switching back to this. I'm not good at multitasking like that. Okay, so we do have a LinkedIn audit service. So I just kind of want to run that through, and this is what it would look like. So you would book with one of our career coaches that will go through your profile, and they'll make a screen video of going through all the sections and giving you specific feedback to your work experience and the direction that you're going into. And then they're also going to give you kind of a to-do list of all the things that you need to do to get your LinkedIn profile up to speed. So normally it's 150, but they do have a special going on that's 95. To me, when I look at these things, it's like time is money. To have someone to just go in and tell you exactly what you have to do, to me, that's like a win, or else I could be there forever, like researching and looking, whatever. That's just my approach on that. We do have some events coming up. So next Wednesday, we have the expert panel, so careers and project management. Even I think everyone should be going to these kind of events. So even if you're not necessarily looking at project management, they could be working at a company where they may employ people who are in jobs that you want to be working in. So it's a great time to be networking. Um, we still have a pretty small community, so your chances of being able to connect and talk to them directly is pretty big. And then again, you're able to connect with them on LinkedIn, send a message, say I enjoyed your conversation and presentation that you did with Devant, and you're already starting a conversation there. So keep that in mind. Then we have our Devant Career Cafe. So this is kind of our social time where you get to network with coaches, and it's a general Q&A session of what kind of questions do you have with your job search in any area. One of our most popular events is our live immigration Q&A. We have a Canadian immigration lawyer here who can answer your questions. And then on my birthday, we have tax tips for international students. I tell you, this is an important thing to come to. Still, I don't know everything about doing taxes, and I can't imagine going to another country and then figuring out what they need for their taxes. So definitely come to this so you can get information, because often it means that it's a way that you're going to be getting money back in some way. So this would be well worth your time to be coming. I I think that is it. That's it. Thank you for coming. We're 3 minutes late and I apologize for that, but thank you so much for attending. It's been fun. And I'm so glad that you all had some great questions and input to put in there as well. And like I said, if you want to practice your voice notes, or if you want to send just practicing a message that's like more personalized, Laura and I would be great people to be practicing on. It's a safe space and we know you're trying. So you're welcome to do that. Have a great night.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, Laura, for a wonderful session.
No
Thank